Thank you very much, everyone, for being here today at the Livable Roadways Committee meeting held today on February 15th, 2023. Would you all please rise and pledge allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. May we have roll call?
Yes, give me one moment, moving one more person over. Councilman Citro.
Here.
Cal Hardy. Danny Jorgensen. Yanika Mills.
Here.
Kevin O'Hare.
Here.
David Hay.
Here.
Emily Hinsdale.
Here.
Danielle Riffenberg.
Here.
Larry Josephson. I did see him online.
Here.
You do have the ability to unmute. Thank you.
Here.
Karen Kress. Megan Winchester.
Here.
Jesus Peraza Garcia.
Here.
Jason Jackman.
Here.
Anna Quinones.
Here virtually.
Gloria Belangia.
Florimar, here.
Carlos Ramirez.
Here.
Una Johnson. Catherine Coyle. Melissa Colazzo. Arizona Jenkins.
Here.
Gus Ignis. We do have an in-person quorum. Chair, would you call for a vote of consent for remote participation?
I will entertain a motion to have remote member participation.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Mr. Hay, seconded by Mr. O'Hare. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion passes. I need to have, excuse me if I'm going out of order, is there public comment?
Nope. We thought someone might be joining us, but I don't see them. Just double check. Do not see them online either.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion for approval of minutes from January 11th, 2023.
Second.
I believe we have a motion made by Mr. Jenkins, seconded by Mr. Ramirez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion passes. You know, we have an interesting agenda today. I'm looking forward to hearing all the status reports that we have. And let the record reflect that Mr. Cal Hardy has joined us. I believe we're going to have Johnny Wong from TPO staff giving us our first presentation today on 2023 safety performance targets.
Morning, LRC. So first up, but it's no problem. Connor McDonald, I'm subbing in for him because he's on vacation in Panama.
Is that one on? Is that microphone on?
Excuse me, Johnny, can you speak up, please?
Yeah, sure. How's that?
That's better. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, thanks. Johnny Wong, TPO staff, I'm here to brief you on the TPO's recently adopted 2023 safety performance targets. And like I mentioned, I'm not Connor McDonald, just subbing in for him. So to begin with a little bit of background and context, TPOs and state DOTs are required to set performance targets periodically. One of the performance targets that we have to set on an annual basis is related to safety. All the performance targets and measures have been handed down to us by Federal Highway Administration as a result of some rules that were passed about 5 or 6 years ago coming out of MAP 21 legislation. There are 6 categories of targets that DOTs and MPOs are responsible for setting, And on this timeline, it's a little bit out of order, but I'll walk you through them from left to right. So on the left, colored in orange, is what's considered PM Performance Measure 1, which pertains to safety. On the bottom left, in that pink color with the earth, is pavement and bridge condition and travel time reliability, respectively PMs 2 and 3. PM4 is to the right of that with the school bus pertaining to transit asset management. And then on the top in the middle with the car is greenhouse gas targets that is referred to as PM6. We have not set targets for that yet. We expect that we'll be doing that over the next couple months. And on the far top right are Public Transportation Agency safety plan targets, transit targets for safety. There are 5 required safety performance measures, which all require a target to be set. On the top, they are fatalities based on a 5-year rolling average, the rate of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, number of serious injuries, the rate of serious injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and the number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries combined. These are basically bicycle and pedestrian fatalities and injuries. Over the past few years, the TPO board has asked us to establish targets for some discretionary measures. So we set targets now for the number of fatalities annually, so not just on a 5-year rolling average, but annual forecasted fatalities, as well as an average of motorcycle fatalities over a 5-year period. The way that we forecast these targets and anticipate what our performance will be at the end of the year is by looking at the amount of money invested in safety projects annually. We take a look at historical data to figure out what we expect the crash performance would look like in the absence of any projects being built. So we end with a pretty high number, and then based on the investments in safety projects that we hope to achieve, we reduce that by a specified percentage. With the trend in safety project investments, we anticipate that we can achieve a 1% annual reduction. So these numbers that are highlighted in the red box to the far right of the screen represent the fatalities projected by the end of 2023, keeping in mind that we expect to see some safety projects come online and they'll reduce those numbers by 1%. So the target for the end of calendar year 2023 for single year fatalities is 214. Fatalities on a 5-year rolling average is forecasted to be 224. The fatality rate per 100 million vehicle miles traveled is 1.56. Motorcycle fatalities, 5-year rolling average, is forecasted to be 40.21. Serious injuries on a 5-year average, 1,084. Serious injury rate per VMT is 7.56. Non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries is 241. This slide is showing a report card of how we did based on the safety performance targets that were set last year. The TPO board deviated a little bit from the staff recommendation. We always recommend that they set the targets in alignment with an adopted methodology. So we forecast that with the safety investments, we can achieve a 1% reduction. The TPO board decided that they wanted to modify that slightly. So the 2022 targets for fatalities are slightly lower than what we recommend. We did not believe that we could achieve that and kind of see that in the performance from last year. We did not meet the single year fatality target. We did meet the 5-year rolling average for fatalities target. We did meet the fatalities per VMT target, did not meet the motorcycle fatalities, did not meet the serious injuries, nor serious injuries per VMT, nor non-motorized fatalities. We're on a little bit of a bad streak. Over the past few years, we've seen record high number of fatalities in Hillsborough, first in 2018, I believe, and then again breaking that record in 2021. 2022 performance was significantly better, although we can't exactly say for sure what was causing that drop, but it dropped by some 40 fatalities, which is astronomical. We can't take credit for all of that. It could be a combination of behavioral changes, folks getting used to driving in traffic again following the pandemic. During the pandemic, we saw a reduction in BMT, which actually perversely allowed drivers to go much faster on highways and drive significantly more dangerously. Some of the takeaways we want you to see as a result of our analysis this year is that several targets were not met. 2022 showed a pretty big decrease in number of fatalities and serious injuries, but we're going to have to continue tracking this over the next few years to identify what the culprit is. Motorcycle fatalities and bike and ped fatalities and injuries are continuing to increase. The serious injuries have been tracking downward for more than a decade. And what we believe to be the case for that is pertaining to vehicle weight. I don't know if many of you know this, but the most common vehicle on the road now is SUVs, which weigh anywhere between 40 to 60% more than a passenger car. High rate of speed, reduced response times for crashes on the side of the road, reduced seatbelt usage, increasing impaired driving. All of these play a role in the serious injuries decreasing. But while that makes us happy to see that injuries are decreasing, they're actually translating into fatalities more often. So what can the TPO do? What's in our toolbox to help alleviate these issues? Well, we can design and prioritize safety projects in the CIPs. We work very closely with our local governments to help them find funding for a lot of the great safety projects that they want to implement but don't have the funds. We had great meetings with all of the local governments as a part of our TIP prioritization process over the past couple of weeks. And City of Tampa has some great projects. They're doing push-build designs. I just saw the Cass Street cycle track go in. Hillsborough County has a number of great projects that they're trying to bring forward. We're working really closely with Temple Terrace to get some improvements out on Bullard Parkway and Plant City in the downtown of Collins. The TPO has reprioritized its prioritization list. We created a new methodology to push forward shovel-ready projects. So we're no longer investing as much in planning studies, feasibility studies, or PD&E. If a project comes to us seeking design and construction funds, we want to make sure that the local governments get that so we can build projects that make a difference quickly rather than having those stay in the hopper for 5 years or more. And the TPO has done a lot of great studies recently and plans for addressing this issue. Lisa and Wade tag teamed the TPO Speed Management Action Plan a few years back. It had some really great recommendations. Most of them were pertaining to ways that we can reduce the speed limit, because I think we all know speed is probably the #1 factor affecting crashes in Hillsborough County, or influencing crashes. I walked you through the methodology and the justification for adopting the TPO's methodology, or applying that to adopt these performance targets, I should say. And so based on that methodology, the proposed targets that we presented to the TPO board were to set the annual fatality number less than 214, the average fatality of less than 224, average motorcycle fatalities less than 40.21, serious injuries less than 1,084, non-motorized fatalities and injuries less than 241, fatality rate per VMT less than 1.56, and the serious injury rate per VMT less than 7.56. We already presented this to a number of our committees last month, and we took it to the TPO board. Reluctantly, they agreed with the staff recommendation and approved the targets. I want to let you all know that these numbers do not make us comfortable. This presentation that I'm making to you is actually more bureaucratic. The TPO does a number of great safety studies. We have an aspirational goal of achieving 0 fatalities in the long term, but because federal highway requires us to set realistic data-driven targets annually, The numbers that were on the previous slide are what we believe we can achieve, understanding that we have limited dollars to invest in safety projects now. So again, like, we're not comfortable with these numbers. They don't make us happy to report this bad news to you every year, but that's the methodology and that's the best we can achieve given the funding available to us. That was a very brief presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or any questions? Mr. Jenkins.
You get all these brutality is because people don't take the time to get to it. They're always in a rush. They're always on the phone. I can't get in how many. I did 15, bakery, 15 and 15. But they're not in the it's about the 300 bakeries. Every other month. The other day, I was going down the evil one about the corner of 15 and 7. Getting ready to call the police. The car tripped up and around me. And luckily, there was a cop there. He pulled him over. He asked me, did he have him in the wheelchair? You know what he said? I thought he was gonna be taking a long time to call the police. No, it's going to the cop gave a dig. He was supposed to wait until I get the call.
Lisa can probably speak to those issues even better than I can, because I know that they did real in-depth analysis of some of the causes of crashes, but that aligns exactly with what we found doing a more holistic overview. Speeding is a significant factor. Distracted driving has been a significant factor for a really long time. Yeah, Lisa can probably speak to that even better than I can, but I agree with you.
Actually, Cal Hardy.
Mr. Hardy, you recognize.
Yeah, so Arizona, we actually have a few projects in that corridor, but the one-way pairs there too. 15, we have the green spine, the next two segments going up all the way to 21st. That's already been, it's in bid right now. So we're about to release it as for construction. And then the other one is 14th Street, same area. We have a quick build going in within the next couple of months that will reduce the travel lanes to 1 and have parking on both sides with protected bike lane. And then DOT will actually be working on 14th Street south of Columbus as part of their interstate project. And they're doing some safety enhancements on that one block between Columbus and the interstate. So there will be a lot more crossings, the La Segunda Bakery, that intersection will be targeted as well. So there are some safety improvements coming, not only in the future, but very soon in the future.
I think when they go on that good, they're flying on that good. The other car coming out, but there's a wall there, but they went on that good, but they can't see the other car pulling out.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And there's also signals going in with the interstate project to help out with that a little bit more. And then even Nuccio, we have plans on that one, on the Nuccio side, to eliminate lanes there to allow for parking to kind of do some traffic calming as well. But I know the areas that you're talking about, and I agree with you. So, but there are projects in the future, and then if there's any problem intersections, always alert us, because we can always look at them on an individual basis.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Wong, thank you very much for this presentation. You have given us some useful information at the TPO meeting. I made some comments, and I still stand by them. This board last year said that our request is that each project, Vision Zero should be a top priority. I've heard things at the last meeting such as tools in the toolbox, shovel-ready projects, but I made a statement last week that if we drop our speed limits to 20 or 30 miles per hour within the city limits of Tampa, we're going to decrease the numbers that we saw up here by at least 25%. I still stand by that, and I hope that the Livable Roadways Committee will feel the same way. Ms. Kress.
If I could just make a quick comment. I've been on this committee for a number of years, and this is always kind of a sad reality check maybe, but it does feel like there are some low-cost solutions that we just leave on the table. Red light safety cameras, no right on red, no dual left and right turns, just, I don't know, it just seems like there's some really basic things that don't get done, and I just don't really understand why we're not doing this. I know that we're gonna make a lot of the driving public mad, but people are dying.
Yes. Every year when we present these targets, it kind of represents a sobering moment. Forgive the pun, but yeah, I agree with you. Every year when we see that we're performing poorly in at least one or two of these areas, it brings attention to the fact that we could be doing better. We could be implementing more low-cost, quickly deployable projects to try to alleviate or install spot treatments in areas that are notorious for a lot of crashes. Councilman, following the TPO board meeting, I did do a little bit of research, and I didn't want to make it seem like I disagree with you. We did some research, and what's available out there shows a wide range of effectiveness for dropping the posted speed limit. Some studies show that on certain facilities, it can be really impactful. And you're right, changing a speed limit sign is really cheap, $20 to $40 per foot. So what's a sign cost? Maybe $100, $200 at most. On limited access facilities, which is where a lot of our fatal and injury crashes occur, not quite as effective. But I want to call attention to something I think we should be keeping our eye on, which is work zone safety. Some of the treatments that have shown to be impactful are making drivers aware of their speed and communicating that message to them. And I think with the construction projects, major construction projects on 275, the DTI North, West Shore Interchange is about to come online any day now. I think it would be wise to invest in those kinds of improvements so that drivers are aware that, hey, maybe they're losing a minute of travel time to get to their job. Maybe reliability suffers a little bit, but safety takes priority over both of those things. That's all I wanted to say.
Unless there's any more comments, please.
To respond to Ms. Kress's comments, yes, it is very sobering. Last year when this was presented, that's why we held the Eye Injury Network workshop, pointed out lots of things that are going well, lots of room for improvement. It helped all that working together, bringing awareness, helped lead to a successful Safe Streets for All grant. We're taking the money there to leverage as much as possible to implement more of these instead of just planning for them. So it is sad, but it's moving in the right direction. Some of this other low cost things, Arizona just asked for the legislative delegation list because he's going to go lobby on behalf of disadvantaged and disabled in Tallahassee next month. We work with the legislative delegation here in Hillsborough and communicate those and we send them the letters that the TPO board has endorsed on those low cost solutions like camera enforcement. It's just the political will has not been there yet, but keep asking and educating.
Can I add one more thing? And this is kind of a small thing, it's really enforcement, and it's not police or anything. I now have a driver, a young driver, and I've been driving a lot more in the passenger, riding around the passenger seat with someone who's just learning. So I notice things a lot more and I get a lot of questions. And one thing for enforcement, this goes back to the city, I think, is there's so much site construction. At every intersection, every time you come to a stop, there in so many places around the city, there's construction fences and other things that are unkempt and are not being monitored regularly. And there's fences falling down and there's silt fences and all kinds of stuff that are just in the way, and you have to wind up nosing out almost into the street just to see around. And that's getting into major streets, going on to side streets, inside neighborhoods. And if that enforcement could help too. It's really hard because you're up over sidewalks and ramps and everything just to see. And you're worried about getting hit in a car, let alone the bike that's coming down or the pedestrian that's coming down, and they don't know, do they go in front of you? Do they go behind you? And then they're stepping out in traffic sometimes. It's just rough. I would throw that out for the city.
Maintenance of traffic, and if you communicate that in their
Yeah.
little hot spots, they can go send somebody when they know they're there.
Ms. Coyle, as much as you try, there is no brake pedal on the passenger side.
No, I know. That's all you can do to just.
Again, Mr. Wong, thank you for this report. There was a study done on Bay Shore Boulevard a couple years ago. And when enforcement was out there, 65% of everybody that was ticketed speeding on Bay Shore lived within a mile or less of Bay Shore. We can't stop good people from doing bad things. However, there are cautions and priorities that we can make. And again, I'm going back, this board last year stated that Vision Zero must be the top priority in every project. Thank you all very much. We have now Ms. Sotomayor. We'll be talking about the Van Dyke
Amanda, I made you
design
present.
project
I made you presenter. You could share your screen.
from last month.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we may.
Hi, good morning. Just want to introduce myself. My name is Amanda Sotomayor, work with Capital Programs Department. I am the Design Project Management Team Leader and the Project Manager for this project. I also have Tammy Creasley on the line. She is the EOR for the project with Fowler Davis and Associates, and she will be assisting with questions at the end of the presentation.
Good morning, everyone.
Amanda, it's not a big deal that your display is in presenter mode instead of full screen. I'm going to go up to the
Okay.
Views tab and switch it. Otherwise, we can still physically see it fine.
Okay, can you see the presentation now?
It's fine. Go right ahead. It's still the same.
Can you see the presentation or not yet?
We can see it fine. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. We are here to talk about the Van Dyke Road project from Gun Highway to east of Worley Road. We will provide an overview of the project and answer any questions you may have. This project is located in the northwest area of the county on Van Dyke Road between Gun Highway and Del Mabry Road. On February 16, 2018, the 2040 Long Range Transportation Plan was approved with the widening of Van Dyke Road included. Through the PD&E study, the county has evaluated the widening of Van Dyke Road between the Suncoast Parkway and Worley Road and determined that doing so would improve and enhance the safety and operations of the corridor. In the existing condition, the roadway is congested during peak hours, making turning movements at intersections difficult. Widening to 4 lanes with a grass median will reduce congestion and allow for turn lanes, which will improve safety. In addition to the widening of the roadway, the study also recommended the connection of the Upper Tampa Bay Trail to the Northdale Lake Park Trail and a sidewalk connection along the south side of Van Dyke Road from Worley Road to the Del Mabry Highway intersection. The segment from Gun Highway to the Suncoast Parkway was not analyzed for widening due to the policy constraint from the Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan. Hillsborough County and its partners are committed to the continued support of the Vision Zero effort to reduce fatalities and serious injuries on our roadways. Vision Zero refuses to accept dangerous roads as the status quo. By committing ourselves to this initiative, we're taking a fundamentally different view of road safety. The Vision Zero 5 E's for safety are engineering, education, enforcement, equity, and evaluation. They're implemented on every Hillsborough County project. The engineering component of the Van Dyke Road corridor improvements include speed management strategies such as 11-foot lanes to reduce speeds and roundabouts to slow traffic. The multimodal components of the project include 10 to 12-foot shared use paths for pedestrians and bicycles, and high emphasis crosswalks to improve pedestrian safety. Also included are trail connections to the Upper Tampa Bay Trail and the Northdale Lake Park Trail. In addition, there will be lighting improvements along the corridor. The recommended roadway typical section includes 4 travel lanes, 2 in each direction, separated by a raised grass median with shared use paths on both sides. The trail connection from the Upper Tampa Bay Trail will include a 10-foot shared use path that begins along the north side of Van Dyke Road and crosses to the south side approximately 1,000 feet east of Gun Highway. The path will be located between the roadway and the right-of-way line while minimizing impacts to wetlands. The trail connection from Northdale Lake Park will include a 10-foot shared use path that will extend from Van Dyke Road parallel to Worley Road on the east side. The trail will fall within Lake Park, hugging the edge of the park to minimize tree impacts and meandering around wetlands. This alternative reduces the habitat fragmentation and segmentation of the park land use. The project is needed to improve safety and mobility for vehicles and pedestrians along Van Dyke Road. This segment of Van Dyke Road will be user-friendly for all modes of transportation, reduce emergency response time, increase mobility during hurricane evacuations, improve traffic flow through access management, and will provide opportunities for landscaping. Modern roundabouts are compact, low speed, and require a yield at entry. They feature a central island, splitter islands to safely separate traffic approaching the roundabout, and yield signs at each entry point. Approaching traffic yields to circulating traffic, and the circulating traffic has the right of way over approaching traffic. The county is proposing to utilize roundabouts in 3 locations. At Lake Carlton Drive, a roundabout will provide safer and more efficient navigation. It will alleviate delay for users that currently have to wait for a light to change. This roundabout also has the benefit of requiring minimal effort to maintain in the future and will continue to function in the event of a power outage. The roundabout proposed at Lakeshore Road will allow for safer and more efficient navigation. This will also require minimal effort to maintain and will function as designed in the event of a power outage. At Lake Reflections Boulevard and Darby Lane, a peanut or dog bone roundabout has been recommended. This type of roundabout has the same benefit as the other roundabouts and allows for a connection to the Grace Family Church main entrance. This configuration has been utilized successfully in other states. This roundabout will provide safer and more efficient navigation, will require minimal effort for maintenance, and will continue to operate in the event of a power outage. Modern roundabouts are safer. They eliminate most lethal crashes such as T-bone and head-on crashes that can occur at conventional intersections. Slower speeds within a roundabout compared to the higher speeds of a traditional signalized intersection can also greatly increase pedestrian survivability. Pedestrians survive over 95% of the time when hit by a vehicle traveling 20 miles per hour, compared to only surviving 20% of the time when hit by a vehicle traveling at 40 miles per hour. Modern roundabouts are resilient and generally do not need day-to-day maintenance. They safely and efficiently operate the same before, during, and after major storms, so traffic maintenance crews can focus their attention on maintaining and repairing signalized intersections. Modern roundabouts are sustainable. They have no red lights, which generate idling vehicles and toxic and greenhouse gas emissions. Studies have shown that the conversion of a conventional intersection to a roundabout reduces idling time, fuel waste, and toxic compounds. Modern roundabouts can enrich the beauty of the roadway system and surroundings and create a platform for public art. Public art in roundabouts can help calm traffic and contribute to local gateway opportunities. The total cost for the recommended improvements is estimated at $91 million. The land acquisition and construction is currently unfunded. Therefore, at this time, we don't have a current schedule as it is to be determined pending the funding. And here's my contact information. If you would like to reach me via email, if you have any further questions. And below is my phone number. And I'd like to thank you all for having us. If you have any questions.
Let's go with Mr. O'Hare first.
Hi, Amanda. Fantastic presentation. I was just curious if you or the other project manager on the call could talk a little bit about some of the neighborhood outreach, specifically with the roundabouts. I know that can be sometimes new and challenging for locals in the area, especially if there hasn't been one there historically. So I'm curious what the feedback has been from folks in the area, specifically with the peanut also.
Well, we did go and meet with the HOAs in the area and with the church. And the church and the Lakeshore Reflections HOA, they were in favor of the peanut roundabout because they believe this would really help with the traffic and the congestion from their communities. Because currently neither one is warranted for a traffic signal, and they have been wanting a traffic signal for a very long time. Tammy, did you want to add anything?
Sure, we met with a few of the other stakeholders throughout the PD&E process, and overall the feedback was very positive. We did have a public meeting. We got mostly positive feedback there as well, and of course we've had a few concerns that we're working through as we move forward.
Perfect, thank you. This is exciting. It's good to see so many roundabouts in a project in a part of the county that does get a lot of love. So thank you.
Ms. Jones, did you have your hand up?
Yes, so how I see roundabouts is that they slow traffic, but number two, they keep it moving. So I agree with roundabouts where there's not a lot of pedestrian and bicycle traffic because it keeps it moving, like it, interchanges and whatnot. But when you have it in a situation where you're having some regional bike trails and having that option to cross anywhere around in a roundabout becomes extremely tricky. If there are no stop walk signs, you can't, because the idea is everything's moving all the time. It's almost impossible to cross safely. So I'd like you to speak to that, how you consider bikes, moving around these roundabouts, especially within residential areas.
Amanda, would you like me to handle this?
Sure.
Sure. So I'll start at the west end of the project where we're proposing to connect to the Upper Tampa Bay Trail about 1,000 feet east of Gun Highway will cross the trail to the south side of the road. There will be proposing to do so with a signal. Similar to the one on Loops Lake Fern, but perhaps with some improvements. Maybe more of a less of a requirement on the user to actually push the button, and maybe more of a automatic change. I've seen some problems with things on the one that Loops Lake Fern. Then as you get further east, obviously there's signals at the Suncoast where the crossing is controlled. Moving into our roundabouts, right now the roundabouts have been evaluated up to 30% design. As we go further into the design process, we'll look at whether or not we add some of the flashing signs to alert drivers to stop and yield to the pedestrians that are in the crosswalks. So that's as we move further into the actual design phase itself. But there is that opportunity.
Mr. Hardy.
Yes, well, real quick on the automatic detection, are you talking about actual ped actuated without pressing the button, but actually just like a ped detector at the crossing?
Potentially, we really haven't gone into the alternatives there. I just, as a resident, I live off Loops Lake Fern, and I have seen people dodge traffic to go across without pushing the button. So it's kind of my own personal thought that we're going to look for a better option at that crossing. So
I would highly recommend not doing that, but you should look at DOT at about Skinner Boulevard on the east and their experience there, because the crashes increased and they ended up with the signal after they experimented with the automatic detection. The other thing is, I was looking at the price tag. I'm assuming that a lot of that is right-of-way acquisition.
Yes, yeah, the right-of-way acquisition will be very costly for this project. So I believe it was around, it's over 30 million for land acquisition currently.
Yeah, okay. And then lastly, with the roundabout, I actually think it's great. I love the peanut design. I think that's a great idea for that intersection because of the spacing there. Just one thing, the roundabouts are great for the intersections, especially for traffic control and speeding. But just think of the linear sections in between the roundabouts, because, you know, just like any other thing that makes people slow down, they accelerate right after. So if there's anything that can be done on the linear sections for speed control, that would be ideal.
Okay, thank you.
Arizona.
You want to make sure that the roundabout that the area there wants. So if you want to get to that side walk on the other side, they have a way to get to the level. If you have the yield signs for the car to yield for that, that's when you're walking down the 12. So then you live on the other side of the 12, you get to walk down. If there's a light where you park the thing, so how would you do that?
At the roundabout?
At the walking 12, they can walk down 12, but I live on the other side of the 12. Did you get about the light to cross?
Is there a flashing beacon to cross the roundabouts? Is that what you're asking?
And at the 12.
But they,
At the walking 12.
if I may, because it's difficult, at the roundabout, they said they weren't aware of the final design, but they're looking at all the options to make it safe for pedestrians and bicyclists as well, including maybe ped activated signals, et cetera, and signage. So, and yes, it will be level. And then approaching the roundabout is a side path. It's not the full on trail. The trail crossing was farther to the west.
You got to connect the sidewalks.
Yeah.
Every,
Extra wide sidewalks on both sides.
Mr. Hay.
Just a few comments. I think that roundabouts are really good. I'm glad the county is using them and utilizing them more often. I did have some questions about the $91 million that Calvin kind of mentioned those. So wasn't the acquisition cost that drove this to that number, you think?
It's the acquisition costs and the current construction costs that have gone up a lot. So those numbers have been inflated a bit from what we had currently estimated because the construction costs have been rising, as everybody knows.
And since we don't have a timeline for this to start, it will probably even get larger. Is that you think that's a correct assumption?
If the inflation keeps going up on costs of materials, then it is very possible.
Yeah, I mean, another question was, is there lighting in this?
Yes, there will be lighting. TICO is the ones that would be analyzing for the lighting. But yes, we are planning on providing lighting along the corridor.
All right, and then just a kind of just a philosophical statement. You know, this section, it's a 2-mile road. We're adding 1 lane on each side and the trail. This 91 million. The whole operating budget for Hart, just the operating budget is 105 million. So, you know, I mean,
In proportion to the number of people.
right. I mean, right, and I know there's buckets of money and certain things can only go, but really, I mean, we have to start looking at, are these investments really maximizing benefits for the entire public? I mean, I haven't been on that road in years. And, you know, I bet you a lot of people in the county haven't been on that road in a lot, except for the people that probably live up there. Right, if you live up in Keystone, which you choose to be out in the rural area. So, I mean, and I don't expect you to comment, but it's just more for this group that, you know, 91 million for this little road and 105 million in an operating budget for a whole countywide agency that serves and it's supposed to go on all the roads. It just really shows that I think the priorities that we're still kind of, even though we slightly are edging more towards safety and transit and everything very slowly. It's a struggle, but that's quite a choice, you know, 91 million versus 105. So just leave it at that, I guess.
So
I just want to remind Livable Roadways why this is on your agenda. During the ETDM process, this project was coming through. Member Larry Josephson brought up that there were many of the design components that you guys were making in the comments as part of Hillsborough County's plan. So wanted you to see those. So appreciate that Hillsborough County did come here. And why it was in the ETDM, you guys brought it up at the time, like, why is it a county road? And why are we seeing this since this is a DOT process? Yes, Hillsborough County doesn't have $91 million to just go out. They have requested it be considered in the FDOT funding. So we're trying to cobble the money together, but it's unfunded as current.
any other comments or questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Garcia.
Hi, Jesus Rithar. Thank you, David, for preaching to the choir. I have a few questions, I think. In terms of roundabout and pedestrians and bicyclists, what I've seen is that the crossing is put away from the circle itself so that the crossing is the narrowest part of the road. So I guess if you could look into that. I mean, you're the experts, not me, but the other thing I've seen is mountable curbs for like trucks and buses. And my biggest concern here is, so we're going from 12-foot lanes to 11-foot lanes, but we're going from 2 to 4. So we're going from 24 feet travel lane total to 44 feet. So I'm not sure how that would calm traffic, because we're talking about 14th Street taking a lane to reduce speeds. But then here, we would be adding lanes. I'm always concerned when I hear adding lanes, because I'm like, this is 2023, like the interstate highway system was finished a few decades ago. But I understand there is a need, but I guess I would advocate for like a center lane turn lane rather than making it into a 4-lane highway. But thank you.
Anyone else?
This is Larry Josephson. If I may speak.
Yes, sir. You're recognized.
Yeah, the county wouldn't take on improving this road just to make it 4 lanes. The road is, and Amanda, you can probably back me up on this, is probably highly congested and probably needs to have the extra lanes. I drive this road occasionally, and sometimes during rush hour, it hardly moves. So the reason that it's looked at taking on adding the 2 lanes is because of the amount of volume of traffic. And in response to the narrowing of lanes, when you narrow the lanes on any roadway, it slows the traffic down, because the visual perception to the driver is that they're going to move slower because they feel uncomfortable because of the close of the cars. The lane widths are within the criteria. So just to say, we're not going out and widening road just to widen the road. There's a reason, and it's the traffic volumes. And Amanda, if you can have Tammy or comment on that.
Yes, the traffic volumes are very high for this corridor. It's already at a level of service F. And as Larry said, during rush hour, the traffic isn't moving. In fact, it's backing up onto the Suncoast Expressway. So we do need to get the traffic to move through the corridor, but at a reasonable speed and with safety considered. The other items I think that were brought up were the mountable curb. Yes, the center islands of the roundabouts will have mountable curb so that trucks and any other large vehicles will be able to allow their back tires to roll up on those. And the pedestrian crossings will occur outside the roundabout, so they'll be at the narrower sections of the roundabout configuration.
And like all roundabouts, not only is it mountable curb, but they have truck aprons so they can ride on that. If they're very large trucks and they have to off track a little bit. That's how the roundabouts are designed.
Ms. Press.
Thank you. I've heard about traffic counts, and I just want to continue to beat the drum that we also should be counting people who are walking and biking. I'm guessing we have no numbers on that, especially with the trail connections. So maybe that could be implemented in the project if it's ever done.
Anyone else? Starts with L. I'm sorry.
Okay, Ignis. Gus Ignis. Probably the least experienced person on this board. Given that this is so far out, and someone said Keystone, it's almost rural, are the builders who are building these developments out there, are they, is any of that cost transferable to these people? So it's not just straight taxpayers? I mean, I live in the city, I'm never out there, but is there a finance mechanism so that these further developments out in the that is probably in South County too, where David talked about that one intersection. Is there a way to transfer some of the charges to builders, these home buyers out in these further districts?
Or was there any profit share money collected for any of those projects?
Right, I
Yeah.
mean, we've heard people talk
Probably
about
not.
cow paths out in South County that have been paved over, and now they're becoming major intersections, and
Once they're already built, they don't contribute anymore. Cal can add to that.
I can add briefly, the mechanism in the city is a multimodal fee, transportation impact fee. It's per unit, basically, it's per residential unit, and it's assessed, it's assessed per, it's not like a percentage, just like our gas tax, and it hasn't been raised since 1986. So that's one of the ways, as Kathy said, proportional share. I believe the best explanation was if your development was going to cause an issue on the roadway, you were responsible to pay a proportionate share of the improvement that would be out there. So for these people, if they're a big development and it was 91 million, people figured out, yes, it's going to cost you 91 million, and then their units were 10% of that, they would pay 9.4 million. But we're not proportionate share at the state level, right? That's the state law now, they got rid of that, I believe. So,
Thank the state for everything.
yeah, so basically the only thing that we have are impact. So that's how the developments get assessed of each, what they're impacting.
And that goes over the whole district, not just for the one street, whatever that district is, and out there, it's got to be huge, because it's so spread out.
And you might not, exactly, it's not going to get developed, it's not going to get directed per se necessarily to that road or even to that area. It might go somewhere else where there's greater need because of other development.
those fees are set, they didn't, this idea is relatively new. So when they built the developments out there, they were looking at this at a cost of 91 million, they're looking at a cost of maybe 20 million, correct?
Well, over a 40-year plan, yeah. We're dealing with a pretty high inflation for that too. For construction. Cal can definitely speak to that. It's
Cost don't surprise.
Yeah. Although they're gonna be, it looked like they were gonna have eminent domain on a gas station, that Circle K that's out there too. So that, when they start taking commercial properties like that, it's not cheap.
Let's move forward if we can. Is there any other further comments or questions? Ladies and gentlemen, it's unclear whether or not we're going to be making any type of recommendations in the future about this. So if we hear it again, let's have our questions ready. And I know my question is going to be this. I foresee Van Dyke being the next Kennedy Boulevard or the next Hillsborough Boulevard in that area. And more than likely, as rapidly as it's growing, is going to be a major thoroughfare. At this price tag, at the cost today that it's going to cost to build, by the time it's finished, will it already be a relic? And if so, how can we ensure that this project will be able to be maintained and kept up to date for the amount of people that are going to be moving to that area 10 years from now? That would be my question. Okay. We have agenda item number D, excuse me, letter D. Ms. Winters has an appointment at, I believe, 10:30. So if we can move Ms. Winters up. Ms. Winters, are you with us? Ms. Winters. Going once.
Elizabeth, I made you presenter. We're taking you out of order.
I unmuted. Can you hear me?
Now we can, yes, thank you.
Okay. I love this technology, huh? No, I appreciate that. Let me click on the show my screen. Are we seeing anything?
We're seeing your desktop.
Oh, okay. Well, let's move this over there. Hey, there we go. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys making that concession for me. We definitely have a lot of stuff going on.
You're not in presenter mode, you're in, you know, whatever the mode is called.
Oh. Is that better? Can we see that?
Go to presenter mode.
Slideshow.
There you go.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. Like I said, thank you for making the concession to let me step up with very busy schedules over here, as you guys all are aware. So I just wanted to give a kind of a brief overview of our resurfacing process. And I will say that this is brief. So if you have questions, I have my contact information at the end, so you can feel free to reach out and contact me if for whatever reason we run out of time here. So okay. Brief introduction. I'm Liz Winters. I'm the planning manager over here at District 7, and we'll kind of get into it from here. What we're going to go over is kind of how we determine what projects get resurfaced. And again, very brief overview. There are more details that go into this, but just in general, this is the process. How we define the FPIDs, and then we're going to get into a little bit of kind of a new versus an old process for our work program and how we incorporate those desktop safety reviews that we do. And then I'm going to kind of give a little bit of an example of how we utilize those FPIDs and how they make it into our projects. Okay. So how we determine our resurfacing projects are one, we have resurfacing allocations, and this is dictated by central office. So we provide input, but ultimately they give us a certain amount of lane miles that they need us to resurface in order to keep our roadways sustained. And then, so just for an example, in fiscal year 26, we were allocated 230 lane miles to resurface. In fiscal year 27, so sorry, this is going to construction, fiscal year in construction. We're anticipating almost double that. I think we're right around 400 right now that we're anticipating. And again, that allocation comes from central office. They have this huge master list that they look and see and say, okay, we have so many deficient roadways. You know, we kind of need to put more money towards resurfacing over the next so many years. So we're going to allocate so many lane miles to each district. And further, the pavement condition survey just identifies those deficiencies. Some of the main things that the survey produces is the cracking, rutting, and rideability. And so this is this is going to sound a little crude, but it's a van that has specialized equipment on it, and it drives over the roadways, and it actually takes roadway measurements of cracks and divots and potholes, and it kind of gives a data output that is then analyzed, and that our roadway group and maintenance people are able to identify and say, hey, this roadway is in really bad condition. This needs to be part of the fiscal year 27 lane miles that we're going to resurface. So that's the second identifier. So those are the two main things that really support our resurfacing program, and that's how we identify those projects. And then lastly, again, once those projects are identified, we then assign them a FPID, project number. So in general, our project numbers are assigned as appropriate. So the first 6 digits are the item number. The second digit is an item segment. So if you have this 424651-1, that is its own project. If you have 424561-2, that is its own project, right? So that second number will identify if it's just a second segment, but it will have its own plan sets, but it's still kind of associated with the item segment. Does that kind of make sense? And then the next numbers are our phase. And you can kind of see off to the side, there's a little table of how we come to those phases. So 52, for example, phase 52 is you pick the 5 from the group A, so construction, and then you pick the 2 from group B, which is contractor. So phase 52 is construction contractor. So that is our construction phase. And so furthermore, if you wanted to do our design phase, which is 32, so you pick 3 from group A, which is preliminary engineering, and then you pick 2 from group B, which would be our consultant. So our engineering consultants would be our phase 32, which is our design. And then lastly, we have our sequence number 01, which this sequence number is what depicts the difference in our funding. So on a project, we can have different types of funding, as you guys are probably aware. So typically our sequence 01 is our straight resurfacing money, our milling and resurfacing. These are our DDR funds. And then we have an 02 that is typically our complete streets money that can sometimes be the SU funds from you guys, or it can be our own additional DDR funds that are specific for complete streets components, but again, all still part of the same project. So that's what the different sequencing is. So getting into that just a little bit deeper, one of those sequences is an 03 or an 04 sequence, which is safety. And part of our resurfacing, not part of, a process that coincides with our resurfacing program is our desktop safety reviews. We call them DSRs. And this is just a overview of what safety and planning can identify that are needs for that corridor. So for every resurfacing project, we get a list and we assign consultants to go ahead and perform these desktop safety reviews so that we can get ahead of the game and get those components added to the project under a 03 or 04 sequence so that we have funding there to accommodate these things as a part of the 3R. So we're not trying to come back and do multiple projects on the same corridor back to back. And so what the DSR will review is your crash history, your roadway characteristics, your traffic volumes, and so much more. And they will identify immediate, short-term, midterm, and long-term improvements that can be done. So typically your midterm improvements are what we would include on the 3R projects. Short-term is sometimes something that we've identified as an extreme safety concern that we can get one of our fast response contracts to address. And sometimes our immediate improvements could simply be as much as we just need to pick up the phone and call maintenance and say, hey, can we really get this sidewalk cleaned up? There's a lot of overgrowth out there. So So those are some of the things that we look for on the desktop safety review. So I did just kind of want to point this out. Even with all of the things that we're doing and the things that we would love to incorporate on these resurfacing projects, we are still restricted based on our design manual for certain things. So our design manual has pretty recently updated our resurfacing section to include small corner clips for right-of-way. So if an improvement requires right-of-way, we're not saying no anymore, but we are saying we'll look at it. So with that being said, though, small corner clips, maybe just a little room to put a new light pole or anything like that, that's something we can accommodate on a resurfacing. If we're talking about improvements that would require full takes, that's not something that we can incorporate onto a resurfacing project. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. Even though the criteria has lessened, we still do have restrictions that kind of stop us from incorporating all of the safety things that we would just really love to put on the resurfacing projects. Okay, so back to work program. In the past, the 3R project identifiers have been the same, right? The lane miles are allocated from central office. They have the roadway survey analyzed, and we kind of know the deficiencies, right? So that process really hasn't changed, and I don't really foresee that changing too much in the future. Again, the DSR reports we've always tried to do them alongside the 3Rs. I will say this has been the first year that we've been ahead of the game, where we're actually looking all the way out at fiscal year 27. We've never had the opportunity to be this far ahead to incorporate some of these improvements that we're hoping to. So this is kind of where I wanted to go with this, is the difference in the programming and the funding. I understand there's been a few questions on this, which is kind of where the focus of this initial request came from. So previously, we were doing segment 1, right? So reading off the number there, so 424561-1 would be our milling and resurfacing only. And then we had a -2, so 424561-2 was the complete streets elements. Now, the way we did that, it had us having 2 separate plan sets for one project. And we felt like that was kind of a waste, right? We don't want to have a whole separate plan set just for sidewalks or just for an intersection, right? Like there was less efficiencies that way. We just wanted to have one plan set with all of these components in it, which is why our new process, our current process, is we've added the sequencing. So it's not a -1 or a -2 anymore. It's a -01 or a -02, and we can still have that different funding, and we can still have them listed separately so we can track them, but we don't have to have a whole separate plan set for them. So, and I can just kind of walk through an example. This is actually one of my old projects when I was in project management. So this one kind of came to mind because we had a lot of these a lot of these components that we had to kind of work through with the funding. So this was a 5-mile resurfacing project that we had started with the old process. The The 440246-1 was our milling and resurfacing. The 440246-2 was the complete streets elements. And again, this meant that this project had two separate plan sheets, or two separate plan sets, sorry, for each one of those components. What we did was that we had the -2 be absorbed into the -1, and we made it the O1 and O2 as you see there. So once we reprogrammed it, they were then the 440246-1, -52, -01, and -02. Again, this made this a lot easier so that we only had one plan set. Furthermore, this project actually ended up having 5 sequences on it. So we had the O1, which is our milling and resurfacing, the O2, which is the complete streets, our O3, which was a very specific 10-foot sidewalk, only on a portion of the project because there were special funds that were allocated to that, which is why we had to make it an O3 so we could track those funds separately. There was an O4 that got added later. There was a signal that was added via an LFA. And so again, we kept that as one plan set, but added the O4 for that tracking purposes. So we could still keep that funding separate, but it was still part of one plan set. And then in this case, we also had an O5, which was for the bat lane for PSTA. And then just to kind of show you guys what that ends up looking like on the plan set, I only highlighted one of these, but you can see at the top, it's the where I've got it circled. There's the 440246-1-52-01, and you can see all of those quantities are under that column, pretty much, etc., so forth and so on. You can just kind of see how that looks on our plan sets. But again, eliminating those -2s, -3s just allowed us to kind of simplify that, but still allowed us to track utilizing our sequences, not our segments. So like I said, that was a super brief overview on kind of how our projects are picked, how we fund and program them. Like I said, I didn't plan on going into too many details, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to see what I can do to help.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Coyle?
Just really quick, I see this potentially as what we've been asking for years, to be able to give us better numbers on what they're spending their money on. It drills down, correct?
Yes, correct, yes. Yeah, we can run reports that pull specifically like O2 or O3 fundings. I will say that it hasn't been until recently in this current process where we're being a lot more specific on which goes on which sequence. So kind of previously, we would kind of put, everything complete streets in O2, but then as part of that, we might also do, X, Y, and Z that, well, it's kind of complete streets, but it's kind of not. So we have worked through, and I can get you that too. I probably should have put that in this presentation, but now what we put under O1 is the straight milling and resurfacing. What we put under O2, O3, and O4 are actually specific guidelines now that we're trying to make sure that we are very consistent between the projects and how we're placing that funding.
We should be proud of that. We accomplished something.
Well, tell them that.
We should be proud of that as a committee. I feel like we actually did something. We made an improvement and have not listened. I'm proud of them for listening. Just want to make that comment.
Ms. Silva?
Yes, thank you very much, Liz, for bringing us to the committee. They have, I know you haven't been there as long, but they've historically seen the projects come through and they're like, why didn't they include this? And why didn't they include that? We have very limited funding, so they like to see as many complete streets and safety features put in when DOT's out there, like you did with Bush Boulevard. So I'm very excited that they get to see how that's happening and that now it's consistently being mapped onto the updated design manual, which includes all that complete street stuff. Yay.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Comments, questions? Thank you very much.
Awesome. So, sorry, just to wrap up real quick, if you do have any questions, I assume this presentation gets sent to all of you guys?
Yeah, it's already on the website. Every meeting, every PowerPoint is presented on the calendar page of our website.
Perfect. Okay. Well, if you guys have any further questions or think of something later, feel free to reach out. My contact information's on there.
Okay, we're gonna go back to item number 3. Gordon?
Good morning. My name is Calvin Thornton.
Calvin, could you maximize the PowerPoint, please, by staying in the corner there? So it fills your screen.
I have,
Right by the little X. If you click on that, it'll fill up the screen like you had it before. Stretch it.
can you see now?
Yeah, but you're not maximized. You're not presenting. Display settings. This under display settings. At your top toolbar, display settings.
Display settings.
How about I present for you?
That
Because
would
I
be
got it.
wonderful.
I got it maximized anyway.
Thank you.
Excellent, thanks. Once again, my name is Calvin Thornton. I'm the City of Temple Micromobility Engineer. This morning, I'm going to be share with you the pilot program, the existing pilot program, as well as the citywide program, giving you an update on the pilot program and letting you know where we are with the citywide program. Next slide, please. Summary, I will give you an overview, outcome, and the use of fees. The citywide will tell you the type of vehicles, the providers, the deployment area, exclusion zone, and the docking system. One thing, there's a lot of information on these slides, so I won't go over everything. Some of it's mainly information for you. And as Lisa said, it's available for you to kind of glean some of the information. Summary of the pilot program. Next slide, please. The pilot program had over 2,400 scooters in a 10 square mile area. The map shown on there is the area that we launched the pilot program. We launched with 4 providers, Bird, Jump, Lime, and Spin. To date, we've had over 3, as a result of some consolidations and changing due to the pandemic. Jump was consolidated into Lime, and so now we presently only have 3, which is Bird, Lime, and Spin. From that pilot program, we've collected in fees over $2 million. We have a partnership. We partner with the University of South Florida, the Carter Center. They provide some of the study and evaluation of the program. We also partner with the Valerum Group, which provide community engagement and outreach. Next slide. As you can see, the pilot program, we've had over 3 million miles since the program have started. The majority of those trips, over 3 million trips, the majority of those trips are in the downtown area. We've had 1.6 million trips in the downtown area. Out in the Hyde Park area, over 720,000 trips. North downtown, which is we refer to as Ybor City, a little over 500,000 trips. So you can clearly see this program is very successful at moving people around that 10 square mile area. Next slide. In addition, we've also had over 3.1 million miles. An average person on a scooter does about 1.21 miles on per trip. And so what this has done is we've seen now fewer people making the option to ride in automobiles. As a result of that, one of the successful this program was during the pandemic, when people no longer wanted to get into an Uber. These vehicles kind of helped out in solving some of their smaller trips getting to and from the grocery store. Next slide. We also have a way of contacting and reporting any problems. We have a City of Tampa phone number, which is scooter.help@tampagov.net. We also have a 1-800 number, which is 1-877-scooter/help, as well as all of the providers' information as well. Next slide. What have we done with some of the fees we collected? As I said, we've collected close to about $2 million. We've used some of those funds to fund the Crossberry Ferry. One of the interesting things is you can ride a scooter down to the ferry, get on it, and ride it over the ferry over to St. Pete. And once you get over there, they also have a scooter program as well. And so you could travel from Tampa to St. Pete using a combination of micromobility and the Cross Bay Ferry. Next slide, please. I'm going to also now give you an overview of the citywide program, phase 1 of the citywide program. Presently, we launched with 2 e-bike companies, Lime and Spin. Each one of them allocated 1,500 e-bikes across the city of Tampa. Next slide. Also, we added 1,500 Razor scooters with seats. Next slide. One of the interesting things about the citywide program, we've included our ADA community in it. We received a number of complaints and concerns that ADA was not included in micromobility. So each provider is required to allocate 1% of their total fleet to ADA vehicles. And so these are some of the different types of vehicles that Lime will be making available for our ADA community. Next slide. And these are some of the vehicles that Spin will be making available. Next slide. And this is the vehicle that Razor will be making available. Next slide, please. And so the citywide program will have 3,000 e-bikes, 1,500 scooters with seats, 45 adaptive vehicles for a total of 4,545 vehicles over the total city of Tampa, which is about 114 square land miles. Next slide. One of the unique aspects of this program, and I would like to thank our partners, the Tampa Downtown Partners, in the high use areas, downtown, West Downtown, and the Ybor City area. This aspect of the program for phase 1, and I want to make sure I get that clear. Phase 1 is the citywide, that's the e-bike program. Eventually, it will be applied to the scooter program once we move to phase 2, but that aspect of the program is in litigation, and that's all I can say about that part of the program. But phase 1 will require you to have lock the devices up to a rack or something. And for those people who choose not to lock it up to a rack, we will assess an out-of-hub fee. Next slide. These are some of the types of racks that you will eventually start seeing pop up in the downtown area. Presently now, I think there are some green racks. I think Lime has red. Tampa Downtown Partner has the yellow racks. So as we, as well as the medallions that they have on the parking meters, we're requiring them to now have riders ride from a rack to a rack system. Now, for those riders who really just have to go from point A to point B, and if there's no rack in that area, they can leave it out of the hub, but there will be a penalty for leaving out of the hub. Next slide. They are also required to have cable locks on the systems, places where they can, ability to lock them up. And for those individuals who wants to collect those scooters that are not put in the hub, put back into the hub, there's without a bounty fee. So if you're participating in the program, you see something left out, you can put it back in the hub, and those providers will be giving you a bounty, credit towards the next ride or whatever that bounty system is. Next slide. And this is just more or less to kind of explaining what that bounty program could be. If somebody left it out of the hub, maybe $5 to leave it out of the hub. And for you putting it back in, you will collect a $3 bounty towards your next ride. Next slide, please. The citywide program will be launched over 15 zones. So we're restricting each operator to a certain number of vehicles in each zone. And this is the 15 zone citywide map. And that table just reflects the amount of scooters that's going to be launching to each one of those zones. Next slide. As of September and November, all of the providers have launched, and this is just a map showing you the placement of some Lime e-bikes, as well as I think this is Razor's scooters as well. Next slide. We will still have exclusion zones such as University of Tampa, the Riverwalk, most of the parking garages, port properties, 7th Avenue, as well as Bayshore. And any other area we deem that's not appropriate for the ride scooters. Here's an example of the racks that will be installed. Next slide. Here's another example. And another. Next slide. And another. Questions, answers.
Any comments? Sorry, we're having a sidebar over here. Yes,
it's
Mr.
perfectly fine.
Hey, Calvin, this is work with Brandy on the messaging for the bounty fee, stuff like that. That should be pretty fun. So just work with her because I think they would be, there's some opportunities.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
I'll get with you later. Don't worry about it. I'm excited about the program.
Yes. As I heard something about the bounty fee. Yes. Each operator is going to have the ability to set up their own bounty fees. So whatever that, if you're riding a potential Lime scooter and Lime have determined that they're going to assess a fee of $5 and give you a bounty of $3, then you can participate into that program. So each one of them will set up their own bounty system to encourage other individuals to participate in putting those items back into a lock system.
Mr. O'Hare.
Excellent presentation. Just wanted to just provide a comment. Very excited that West Shore has its own micro-mobility district, and we're getting as much bikes as downtown, which is great. Which was actually just with Lime yesterday at an installation in front of Kona Grill that we hope to have by the end of this month. So that's really exciting that we'll have some more micro-mobility options in the district. During college, I actually worked with Coast and used to do the customer service line and would get many calls about bike bounties and collecting those fees. And it is a very lucrative business. Part of Coast actually used to run their nationwide customer service out of Tampa. So we would get calls from other cities that had similar systems like Hopper, and many cities across North America really take advantage of the bike bounty program, and a lot of folks actually profit essentially off of it because it gets put into their accounts as a credit. And so some people actually make their, they pay for their own usage by collecting bikes, which really helps in terms of the operator lowering the fees that they have to pay for gig workers to go and collect the bikes and scooters on a routine basis. I'm sure some of you may have seen them, especially in U-Hauls going out at night to collect those bikes and take them back to hubs. So really excited to see that culture kind of continue amongst all the operators, and really how easy it is for the operators to put some bike racks up in places pretty quickly. So just praise and kudos, and excited to see more bikes in West Shore.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez.
Hey, Calvin, thanks for the presentation. We're very excited living in North Hyde Park. I know you've recently received emails from our community about bikes being dropped off in the middle of sidewalks and ramps, getting in the way of things. So I'm very excited for the fact that things are going to be docked, or there will be a boundary fee to kind of clear up those issues. You did mention, you were talking about phase one, about the e-bikes, and then you were saying that the scooters, you can't really give too much information on. Do you have like a timeline when we'll be able to have docks or bounties for e-scooters, or is that still up in the air?
There will be an evidentiary hearing in March on the litigation for the scooters. And after that, we should know the outcome, hopefully the final outcome of how we can proceed forward.
Awesome, thank you so much. Yeah, the bikes have never really been a problem, not too much anyway, around town and downtown. I've seen a lot of the scooters being in places where they shouldn't be, so we'll really be excited about having that sooner than later. Thank you.
Mr. Jenkins.
Two questions. Can you go back to the slide with the ADA? I want to know how is it ADA? What makes that thing ADA? And then my other question is, when we bought like the cutoff thing, where the run, are they picking the bike up and putting taking it to the dock? Because I'm still seeing bikes being cut off on the sidewalks. They still blocking the ADA. So can you tell me how they doing that? Are they picking them up when the van? Because one day my money was out, it got lost. So are they pushing the bikes by manual to the docks? Or that's someone picking them up? And the ADA, what make that ADA? How the ADA?
Yeah, with some of the challenges that we still have with people leaving them on the sidewalk and not putting them in appropriate places, we're hoping to see some significant improvement. We go out regularly, weekly, and kind of survey and look at some of the challenges that we have. And clearly, it's still with the pilot program that we don't have the ability to have lock to. And so one thing that we're hoping with the citywide is implementing the lock to, implementing the bounty program. And one of the other unique aspect of the citywide scooter program is those scooters will have the ability to have cameras on them. And those cameras will let the rider know exactly where they're leaving them. And if that is not the appropriate place, it won't let them finish their ride. And so as we move forward with the citywide scooter program, we will have more tools to make sure that people place them where they need to go.
Yeah, well, what makes that like ADA? See,
And then I have the slides up of your adaptive vehicles, and he's asking what makes these ADA.
One of the things that we learned from our University of South Florida partners is, for those who, for instance, cannot have difficulty walking, by having three-wheel vehicles, you don't have to have as much balance as you would normally have with the two-wheel vehicle. As far as some of the ones that have tandem seats, for those ADA individuals who maybe have a vision challenge or vision impaired, for those who do not have from the hand cycles, or for those who maybe do not have the ability to use their legs. So ideally, we would love to be able to meet everyone's abilities, but the goal for the ADA program is for us to get input from the ADA community and for them to kind of help us out with coming up with appropriate vehicles for their needs. We won't know every need, but the goal is to start, and as the ADA community participate more and tell us what their needs are, we can adjust the program and make changes to accommodate everyone. The goal is really to accommodate all abilities, all adult abilities, and all adult needs. So it's a beginning.
So the one with the long handle up top, that's the handle. That's the handle.
The one with the long handles.
That's the one that can't. Is it right?
Maybe it's this one.
The one that can't.
This is the one you would pedal with your hands. No, yeah, this one.
They all have motor on it.
They're all motorized. Yes.
Yeah. Well, some of them are motorized, some of them are not.
This one is fully motorized. I saw these at the fair. Those are tracks. These are pedal.
Okay, I'll be the one on the bottom. That one should have a more on them.
Yeah, more of those.
They can't go.
Yeah. Okay. It's like the ones you don't have to pedal. That's his feedback today. Okay. You can keep moving.
Ms. Judson, and then Ms. Kress, and then over to Ms. Insel.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. It's super informative. And I guess I'm still wondering about the enforcement of these scooter bikes getting into the right place when the ride is done. So as I understand, there's a $5 penalty. And then you said that the ride still continues, it doesn't close. I'm wondering if that's enough. And I'm hoping we can evaluate this, because once a scooter or one of these micromobility machines are in the sidewalk, it is now immobilizing part of the community, which is, I think, a really big problem. I'd really like to stop that. So I'm wondering if there's a way to adjust maybe some of the repercussions of not putting it in a suitable space when the ride is over.
Yes, one of the aspects of the micromobility is for all of the fees to be increased as a result of the habits or the bad habits that can occur with leaving them anywhere and everywhere. So yes, there is an ability to increase the fee. There's ability also to have a much higher fee, as well as a much higher bounty. Clearly, as was stated earlier about the coast system, there was quite a number of individuals who were happy to go out and correct them and put them back in the racks just to collect the fee. It's amazing just to see how many people willing to participate to help correct some of the problems once they realize that they can collect revenue.
Great, I'd just love to see an update and when that starts. I'm excited. It sounds like a great program. I really want it to work.
Ms. Kress.
I have a whole presentation on it, but I'll just briefly tell you that one of the goals for downtown is to get the parking off the sidewalks and to be shared. So Calvin has done so much research into this and has been open to us approaching the city as a pilot project. So basically, we took the hatched areas at the end of an on-street parking row that was just kind of leftover space. And we have 12 sites out there now where we put some bike racks and some posts around them. And I'm hoping to do another dozen. This is actually a grant from the Florida Department of Transportation I'm using to buy the infrastructure with. So, and then also another key part of that is that we share it amongst the vendors. So right now each vendor has to get their own parking area. So we're trying to get them consolidated into one area. And then they'll be kind of the end users will have a predictable place to look for parking. Let me just look at the end of the blocks to see where I can find the closest one. So it's a pilot program right now, but I think it's going to work. It worked in other cities. I'm not making this up.
And I think one thing you also have to remember, as what we constantly find is that with lack of infrastructure, people tend to create their own unique situation and their own habits. As we add more and more bike racks and more racks to lock these up to the downtown area, you will see some of the behavior change. We clearly are seeing it almost with every phase of micromobility we're launching, that people's habits are changing. Obviously with the bikes, you don't see them as bad as you do with the scooters. I mean, the scooters, yes, we built them some very bad habits, but hopefully with the next round of smarter scooters, the smarter, better technology, the habits will change.
Ms. Hinsdale.
Yeah, I just wanted to do a quick mindset check with the group. We are very concerned about scooters and bikes being parked in sidewalks and dumped in sidewalks. I was at Walk to School Wednesday this morning and saw at least 2 cars that are pulled onto the sidewalk for their parking spot, and all of the driveways and an entire block outside the school where the car parked in the driveway was blocking the sidewalk. So I feel like once again, we have 2 classes of citizens, those who drive and everybody else, and we'll continue to prioritize. Cars can park wherever they want, no repercussions, that's fine, just let it go. But a scooter in the middle of the sidewalk, we're gonna have an entire meeting about it, presentations about it. So if we are going to pursue multi-mobility, that's actually multi-mobility, we have to start enforcing keeping cars out of sidewalks as well. That seems to me, a car pulling across the sidewalk is a much larger, more significant problem for the safety of our community than a scooter in the middle of the sidewalk.
Excuse me.
That's okay. Just tell Cal, I rode my bike last night from downtown, where I got off the bus for my commute to where I live now in West Tampa. I had stopped 4 times to pull scooters out of the bike lane that were laying down. We're not even talking on the sidewalk. So, and as somebody, it looks like this program is expanding through the neighborhood I live in. The location of these hubs needs to be advertised. I mean, I don't know where the closest hub is to my house, and I've used the scooters and the electric bikes. I don't know where to go look for them. I look on my app, there's one, and then I go wander my neighborhood using the app. So well publicized where these hubs are, because the reality is these are last mile, first mile devices. So people are using them when they, a lot of times when they get off transportation, and then to get to their final destination. So the hubs need to be scattered and need to be advertised where they are. And as somebody who uses these devices, I had no idea that there are hubs I'm supposed to be taking them to. So somehow there needs to be a better instructional program besides just the 2-minute here, put a helmet on, use the app. And there used to be a bounty if you wore a helmet that reduced the price. That's no longer visible on any of the devices that I've used. So that's something to keep in mind, because as we increase the usage of these, we're going to have more accidents and probably more head injuries.
Garcia.
Just a quick follow-up on Emily's comment. City of Los Angeles fines people for even the overhang. Like the wheels might be off the sidewalk, but the pickup truck as is on the sidewalk, like even for that, they get fined. Apron parking, I think, is forbidden as well. So maybe City of LA is a good starting point.
It's illegal in the city of Tampa to park blocking a sidewalk as well, but
It's enforcement.
it's
Yeah,
not,
just like
you
with construction
can't
fences.
get somebody to respond to that. Right, so it's a choice we're making.
Reminder, this is where to report your scooter problems.
Mr. Hay?
Just to follow up, I really think part of the problem with the cars is that the lack of curbs. The curbs, when people pull up and they pull right onto the grass and the sidewalk, if there's a curb there, it's much more difficult. Where I grew up north, everywhere had curbs. That didn't seem to be a problem. Then when I moved here and I had to weave in and out of all these cars, it really gets down to, again, back to complete streets, and curbs are part, just like landscaping should be, but that's just my 2 cents on that.
Any other comments or questions? As Ms. Silva was pointing out, she had a slide up there of how people can call and make sure that things get done. We only have 10 minutes for our final presentation. I just want to say this. I'll reiterate what I said earlier. We can't stop good people from doing bad things. However, we can sure as hell find them for doing bad things. All right, I believe we have next up is Mr. Fox.
Yes, good morning, everybody, and I will get right to it. All right, I'm assuming you all can see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, so thank you for having me this morning. Sorry I can't be there in person, but I'm out of town on some training. So this is the presentation for the Gandy Boulevard PD&E that is underway. So first we'll start with the limits of the study. They begin in Pinellas County at 4th Street North and extend northeast into Hillsborough County, ending at Southwest Shore Boulevard. Now the project's purpose is to reduce traffic congestion and improve bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. And the need is provided by the fact that the Gandy Bridge has deficient level of service, from the segment from 4th Street to the west end of the Gandy Bridge has a deficient level of service in both 2016 and in 2040. And also there's limited bicycle accommodations present within the study area. And according to both the Fort Pinellas Metropolitan Planning Organization Active Transportation Plan, there's bike lanes that are to be constructed and a trail from 4th Street to west of San Martin Boulevard is planned. And also the Duke Energy Pinellas Loop from 20th Street to San Martin Boulevard is also planned. So we broke down the project into 3 major segments. The first major segment is the Pinellas segment that extends from 4th Street to the west end of the Gandy Bridges. The second segment is the base segment, and that extends from the Gandy Bridges over Old Tampa Bay. And the third and final segment is in Hillsborough County, and that extends from the east end of the Gandy Bridges to West Shore Boulevard. Now, Gandy Boulevard is a very important east-west corridor in both Pinellas and Hillsborough counties. It's part of Florida's strategic intermodal system. It connects regionally to I-75, US 19, and also the Leroy Summit Expressway owned by THIA. It also connects to regional centers in St. Pete and Tampa, and it is also a hurricane evacuation route. I'm just quickly covering the existing typical sections, first starting on the left, top left, with the Pinellas segment. The typical section is a 4-lane divided highway with a 12-foot shade use path. It's not continuous along the whole segment, but in majority of the segments on the north side of the roadway. Next, we have the segment 2, which is the base segment. Consists of 2 bridges. Each of them have the same typical section, 12-foot lanes in each direction, along with a 6-foot inside shoulder and a 10-foot outside shoulder. And the segment 3, the Hillsborough segment, the total roadway width is around 21 feet, and the roadway ranges from anywhere between each lane ranges from anywhere between 10 and 12 feet along that corridor. Now moving on to our preferred typical section. starting with the Pinellas section. We have a grade separated portion that'll have 2 lanes in each direction, as you can see in the middle there. I'll just circle my mouse so you see what I'm talking about. That would be the grade separated portion, and also the outside lanes have a frontage road system, and that are comprised of 2 11-foot lanes in each direction. We also have a 12-foot multi-use trail on both the north side and on the south side. Now, between Brighton Bay and San Martin Boulevard, we actually convert to a viaduct portion. So this is still within the Pinellas segment, but we elevate to a viaduct and we actually try to tuck in the frontage roads so we can avoid right-of-way impacts to residential communities on the north side of the project. And on the viaduct portion, we have the 2 12-foot lanes in each direction, and we still have the frontage roads along with the multi-use trail on both the north and south side. Now moving on further east, still within the Pinellas segment, this is from San Fernando Drive to the west end of Gandy Bridges. We extend to a 6-lane typical section with 3 lanes in each direction. That's 3 12-foot lanes, outside shoulders and inside shoulders of 10 feet. And the frontage road narrows down to, not really narrows down, still it's 15-foot wide for 1 lane, but it's 1 lane in each direction. And we continue that 12-foot multi-use trail on both the north and south side. The next segment is the base segment. And I'll start from the right image. Right now, the image to your right, which has the red X on top, is the existing eastbound bridge. This bridge will be removed, will be demolished, and the existing westbound bridge, where you see the purple widening, will be widened and converted to the eastbound direction. So that'll be the new eastbound bridge, and that's a taller bridge when you drive along Gandy right now, would be converted to an eastbound direction. And then to the north of the existing bridge, we'll build a new bridge structure that'll become the new westbound bridge. This will have so both bridges will have 3 lanes in each direction, and the new bridge structure to the north will incorporate a multi-use trail. And the and the third and final segment is a Hillsborough segment. Now, within this segment, we do not have any proposed widening or right-of-way impacts, but what we will do is we will have to realign the road so it connects to the new bridge structures, and also so that the new eastbound bridge connects to the appropriate roadway. We will also improve the multi-use trail on both the north and south side of the project, along with creating a loop. And this is going to be both on the Hillsborough Pinellas side, so that folks can, if they're on the south side of the trail on the south side, they can easily get to the north side without having to cross over the physical roadway. Oh, sorry, my mouse is a little sensitive. Now moving on to access management, we have full median openings at Brighton Bay and Mangrove K Lane or San Martin Boulevard. And we also have 3 other full openings located at 1,400, 4,600, and 9,000 feet east of San Fernando Drive. These are shown in those 3 locations are shown in the images on the left. And then here's a Brighton Bay segment and the longer image on the bottom with a San Martin. And this is the viaduct area that I mentioned, that we went to viaduct so we could avoid hitting those structures, residential structures to the north. There's also going to be another opening that's 500 feet west of Bridge Street in Hillsborough County. In addition to there being a new access provided into Gandy Park South. So this will be great for any vehicles or boaters trying to access Gandy Park South. Right now they have to do a U-turn, so this will enable more direct access. All right, and in regards to stormwater management and floodplain compensation, we have 2 proposed stormwater management facilities. One will be an on-site pond that is shown on the left here. So this is already an existing pond that we can extend within the existing FDOT right-of-way. And the second proposed pond is an off-site pond, and this is gonna impact part of the property that's currently owned by Derby Lane. Additional 1.3 acres in right-of-way will be required for the proposed off-site pond. there in the bottom right image, and no floodplain compensation is required for this project. Now, other environmental effects that we are studying within this PD&E include natural resources, cultural resources, social environment, and physical environment, which include anything from wetlands, protected species, 4F impacts, relocations, and also air and noise quality and contamination. Here we have the estimated project cost broken down by different phases. So you can see for design, we're estimating 59.86 million, right-of-way 41.9, wetland mitigation is 1.25, CEI is 59, construction is 598, with a total cost of all phases of $761 million. And that includes all the segments, the Pinellas, the Bay segments, and also for the Hillsborough segment. So this PD&E is consistent with both the Ford, Pinellas, and Hillsborough TPO long-range transportation plans. Now we'll go on to the schedule. Study began in February of 2020, and as we all were aware, things got a little hairy after February of 2020, so the project did experience some delays. We are still ongoing with the preparation of documents. Right now, the draft documents are on display at the libraries. We do have a public hearing coming up at the end of this month, February 28th, and I'll get into that on the next slide. And we're anticipating the PD&E study approval the second quarter of 2023. Now, in the 5-year adopted work program, right now only the design segment of the Pinellas segment is funded. We do not have right-of-way or construction currently funded. And for the Bay segment and Hillsborough segment, we do not require right-of-way, but we're not currently funded for design or construction. Finally, so for the public hearing, that's going to be Tuesday, February 28th, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. There's going to be both an in-person location and a virtual component. You can attend the in-person location at the Pinellas Park Performing Arts Center. The address is shown on the screen. It's located just west of the project limits. And to attend virtually, you can do that via GoToWebinar. You can pre-register for that. We have that active on our website right now. And we will have all the draft documents already on display at the libraries and both at department headquarters. And we will have all the exhibits, including the video, for the public hearing will go up 7 days before the public hearing. So here's my contact information along with the link to the website. Definitely ask folks to visit to become more familiar with the projects. And now I would like to open up for any questions. Thank you for your time. I know I was trying to rush through it, so we didn't go as scheduled, so sorry I had to speak a little fast.
All right, Ms. Jones.
I remember this presentation last year. I'm not quite remembering the 3 lanes rather than the 2 that currently exist. But I know that somebody did bring up the idea of providing, a future rail line in this study. And I think it's so important. Like, if you're gonna have 3 lanes, make sure one of those lanes can be taken out for light rail, because we really need to connect Tampa Bay better through community transit, not through your car. I'd love to see some more forward thinking in this time.
So right now, I'm sorry, was somebody else saying something?
Mr. Fox, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So we don't have light rail proposed for this quarter. We have coordinated with the transit agencies as far as their upcoming plans, and right now none of them do have any light rail proposed along the corridor. I know on Howard Franklin Bridge, we went ahead and strengthened the substructure so that could withstand the weight of light rail, but that has not been proposed at the moment for Gandy Boulevard by the department or the transit agencies.
I think you should.
Okay.
Mr. O'Hare, I'll make a comment. Mr. O'Hare.
Really quickly, great presentation. Has there been any thought or any consideration for the proposed tear down of the one span on the bridge for any type of multi-use or mass transit opportunities. Our bridges across the bay are limited, so anything that's already built that still has some life in it or can be rehabbed to provide more life for future use, has that been considered instead of just tearing down the existing span?
No, we haven't considered that, and it's kind of goes back to kind of our experience with the Friendship Trail Bridge. That was, of course, the previous span of Gandy Bridge that was used as a multi-use trail. But as the bridge ages, the degradation of it just gets worse and worse. So the cost to upkeep it costs more and more. And for the Friendship Trail, the cost to demolish it eventually, unfortunately, fell on Hillsborough County because they took over maintenance of it. So we find it much more prudent to instead of trying to maintain a structure that's in decline, it's much better to just build kind of a new structure versus just maintaining one that's going to cost more and more to maintain the older it gets.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Fox, thank you very much for the presentation. Ms. Jones, to the point, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. One of the pieces to the puzzle of moving people that live in Pinellas that work in downtown Tampa would be rail across the Howard Franklin, the proposed Howard Franklin, to connect with CSX that would take people straight into downtown. I am an advocate for if you could please build support in for rail in the future, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Ms. Silver.
Greg, what gets brought up to the TPO frequently is the drag race situation that you have on the Gandy, because it is that straight line that Councilman Citro just mentioned, but I saw that you did have the 12-foot lanes. Was there any speed management techniques explored in the design?
So, so drag racing, of course, is very difficult to kind of stop because even if it did narrow the lanes, that's not really necessarily going to stop people from drag racing. However, in coordination with PSTA, we are considering actually adjusting the typical section. So this won't be available necessarily for the public hearing, but we are considering adjusting the typical section to potentially narrow the lane so that we can provide for bus run shoulder operations in the future. That's still in discussion. But that may be one way that we can actually narrow the lanes. And of course, as we go into design, whether we do the bus and shoulders or not, we can certainly consider narrow lanes as a form of, as one of the components of speed management as we go into design. So yes, this is the current concept, but we're not 100% locked in. That's why we kind of have these meetings. So I will take all the comments made today, especially about including transit and also speed management, and that'll kind of go into the overall comments that will adjust how the final concepts come after public hearing.
That'd be great.
Mr. Garcia.
Hi, thank you, Craig. I know we're over time, but quick reference to the rail over the bay comment. I agree. We do, however, already have transit over the bay. PSTA runs 100X route on Gandy and 300X on Howard Franklin. They are not the best service that can be out there. It's every hour, weekday only, but it's something. And I think rail is definitely a good thing, maybe 20 years from now. 5 years from now, I think we could beef up those services. Just food for thought. Thank you.
Mr. Fox, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it.
Any old business? Any new business? Then if I have no objection, you're adjourned.
Lisa,